All right, well, welcome into the post-game show. We officially move over to that as Philadelphia, they are winners. How about that? Thumbs up down below. We appreciate you guys watching during our
Let's
live
go.
stream. Josh, there's a lot to break down. We'll see if we get any sort of live updates in terms of press conferences and stuff like that in a second. But where do you want to start with this? Because the big storyline is going to be DeAndre Swift, but there are a lot of little storylines I think to hit on. And let's pause on Swift for a second. Let's start with Jalen Hurts, because Hurts is going to be the biggest, I would say, hot takey player of this entire game because he was awful early on. He settled down. He had a couple of really good throws, especially the ones to A.J. Brown that should have been a touchdown, got obviously called back. And then the other one that should have been a pass interference, that one got called back. He did hit Smitty for 2 passing touchdowns. I think overall you give him a B- because he still had that horrible interception and a couple of these design runs that I just haven't liked what I've seen from quarterback power. But I think the second half was a big get-right half for Jalen Hurts. 10 days off now. You like to think that we're about to kind of get 2022 Hurts the rest of the season.
Yeah, I hope so. But I would agree that I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, at B minus, he had some throws, he made some plays, he had some others that were very alarming, and you mentioned the interception. So I hope and think that it's still a get right game, I suppose. However you want to phrase it, but you went away from something I felt like, and I think a lot of us did from the first game. Granted, you didn't have as much success against the Patriots, and their scheme was set up to probably stop it more so. But the rushing attack, and we didn't see it.
Yeah.
We didn't see Swift hardly at all. Thank goodness we saw him, and he is better than I think I expected. And maybe people thought he would be this good, but I thought he would be really good. He was next level. We had the comment, of hey, he looks like Shady out there. He did. The
He
plays that
did.
he made, making guys miss in the hole, the elusiveness, the jukes, being a factor in not only the run game, but also the pass game. And also when you don't even throw to him, he's a factor because the defense has to account for him. I think you saw that, and that's why big plays opened up, especially in the second half with the DeVonta Smith touchdown, because the defense has to come in and key off of it. So that's the huge takeaway there is I think if you're not Jalen is I think can be and will be better. But I think that too much early on was saying, "Hey, we're gonna open this thing up." And Brian Johnson at the very beginning of the game is like, "We're just gonna pass and keep throwing and have quarterback run designs." Like, you know what? The defense is keying off of Hurts. I mean, they know that he's a factor, but to take a little pressure off in the second half, I think you saw where you can let him relax a little bit and go, "You know what? There's other playmakers on this team. Let's get them the ball. We don't have to ask Jalen to do everything." And you saw it work so much better. So big takeaway is I liked the adjustment. Thankfully, Brian Johnson found the run game and then decided to stick with it, but also utilizing the weapon that is Agent Zero. And, unfortunately, like we were talking about earlier, but Kenny Gainwell, you just lost a job. As much as you may like Kenny G, there's without question your new RB1 is DeAndre Swift.
Let's at least mention what will be the talk of tomorrow. That didn't happen on the football field. It happened on the sideline. A.J. Brown seemingly upset with Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni having to come over and console him a little bit and calm him down. They immediately go to him that next drive. Again, should have had a touchdown catch, but of course, pass interference that wasn't called. Gets a big first down late in that game. Do you see any sort of drama brewing between Hurts and A.J. Brown? I think Hurts. I think Brown's just upset. I mean, he didn't have a lot of targets tonight until late in that game. This seems
Mhm.
like it will blow over, but receivers are divas. All of them are. And you watch DeVonta Smith
Yeah.
get 26 fantasy points, over 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns, and A.J. Brown is touchdownless so far. I think he's a little bit upset, and honestly, maybe rightfully so. He needs to get more targets early on in these games.
Yeah, I agree, and I understand he's gonna be upset, he's gonna want more, what was that? I think 4 catches, 29 yards or something like that is
Yeah.
what he ended up with, but yeah, I understand it's not concerning to me because Jalen and him are tight, they're gonna be fine. Yes, you want some it's almost a fine line, I think we've talked about this maybe on a previous show, but, it's like you want a little bit of diva, but not too much, and not anything to, cause too much of a ruckus within the locker room. I don't think it will be that. Maybe AJ afterwards will apologize or say, "Hey, that wasn't called for," and maybe he won't because he did want the ball and he should have gotten it a couple other times. Now, the penalty that wasn't, it should have been called for the pass interference. That would have been a touchdown there. So, probably would have been making him feel a little bit better in that instance. But still, it's the fact that AJ will get his touches. I think that he does need to get it a little bit earlier in the game. Like you mentioned, we finally saw, what was it, like late in the second
Yeah.
quarter where Hurts goes to AJ on a slant and is like, oh, hey, you know what? This is what we ran last year. Why are we finally doing this? So, I think the offense will figure some things out. Like we mentioned, as time goes on, it's going to give plenty of time for, I think, Brian Johnson to analyze and say, hey, this works. Maybe this doesn't. Defenses are playing us differently, perhaps, than last season because they see some things and have tried to adjust. But I think overall, you got the win. You get 10 days now to hopefully get healthier because we can talk about the injuries here in a second, but there's a lot of them coming away from the game. But then also with AJ, you can scheme up some other things. The offense is, let's be honest, it's not A plus. It's not clicking all cylinders. And so, you still need to get some things right. The benefit or the beauty of it is to say you're a good enough team. And I know that we're not up to the level I don't think that anyone would say, but you're a good enough team to go in here and, yes, the Vikings had kind of a chance towards the end, you could say, because there's an onside kick. But I mean, win rather comfortably because they had to make those comebacks there with still, again, players not playing up to the same level or standard that we're hoping them for. So there's still room for improvement, which is, I think a positivity. You're 2-0. There's room for improvement, and I think they'll get it figured out.
I hope that Brian Johnson learned something tonight, and that is that you can't open a game throwing the football 9 straight times or whatever the number was, and you need to run the football through DeAndre Swift. He needs to be the feature back. Gainwell can be mixed in, fine. I'm fine with that. Obviously, he's still a good player, but this needs to be DeAndre Swift at least 20 touches a game after what you saw. 28 carries tonight, almost 200 yards rushing, got the rushing touchdown. He was incredible. And if you establish that earlier in the game, you're going to open up the deep shots. You saw it in the second half. I mean, you had a couple of deep shots there to A.J. Brown. We may keep mentioning the one that went through his hands that was early pass interference. That's set up because they couldn't stop the rushing attack. And so while we like to rip on Brian Johnson, and maybe rightfully so, he's been kind of iffy, at least the first game, definitely early on in this game, kind of maybe figured things in the second half. I think this is a very, very good learning opportunity for the team that has 10 days off to watch film, 10 days off to regroup. If I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at home 10 days from now, I don't want to play this team because this team shows you that even with a really banged up secondary and with some issues happening at linebacker and with brand new play callers and with Jalen Hurts not playing his best, they put up 34 points on a Vikings team that a lot of people picked to win the North this year. Will they continue to pick them to win the North this year? Probably not, but this team is very, very, very good, but can be way, way, way better with a couple of tweaks here and there. Let's flip over to the defense here. Sean Desai. The stats are going to say Kirk Cousins had 4 passing touchdowns. The stats are going to say 28 total points. Was it perfect? No. Did, Mario Goodrich play great the entire time? No. Did Josh Jobe give up a touchdown late? Yes. Overall, though, I think Desai had a really, really, really good game, and I thought was much better than what you saw week 1 against the Patriots.
Yeah, I would say he definitely had a much better game. I think there's still some areas where he can figure some stuff out, but to your point, he's without some starters. He's without some key pieces. So it's hard to grade him or say like, oh, he was, I don't know, if you're going to say he had a B plus game or whatever grade you want to give him, he's missing some guys. So with the guys that he had in play, you got to give him some credit. I mean, you're talking about a different green dot wearer in Nicholas Morrow, who was not a guy that got, a little bit in the preseason, I think, but other than that, it was a Christian Ellis most of the time, or it was Nakobe Dean for a little bit, but a Christian Ellis during the preseason, and then certainly for the regular season game. So, a lot of adjustments, and then you didn't have a Reed Blankenship out there, which let's give some credit to Justin Evans. You want to hate on him or say, hey, he didn't have the best week 1, or, he might be iffy there. He proved it. Let's just give him that. He proved there's a reason he's on the field. He had a forced fumble. He had a fumble recovery. He would have had another fumble recovery if he hadn't had an offsides from Kentavious Street. So he had a fantastic game. He blew some coverages. You're going to see that. It's TJ Hawkinson and the Vikings drew up some schemes that, they've got some good receivers. Let's give him some credit. But overall, Justin Evans, I think, played a lot better. And you got to see that because he needed to step up. Now, on the flip side, I would argue that Terrell Edmonds was out of place on a couple occasions and was able to give up some bigger plays. So, you have a question mark if Reed Blankenship is not able to get healthy. I would hope and think with the 10 days he's able to go with the rib injury. But if he's not and Terrell Edmonds has to play more against the Bucs, well, maybe they can fix some things or get things ironed out on that side. But overall, Justin Evans, I think, answered the question. Nicholas Morrow played fairly well. Zach Cunningham, we had the announcers jinx. As soon as we mentioned it, they start giving up a couple plays, but still overall, I would say it was a fairly solid game from guys that you're asking probably more than they would have expected, or certainly the coaching staff was expecting from those guys in those spots. And I think that's a positivity you could certainly take away.
Philadelphia's 2-0, right? Remember last year they got up to 8-0 and then lost on Monday Night Football to the Washington Commanders. You're not going to
Yeah.
win every single game this season. You're not going to be 8-0. I think most of us expect them to lose at some point before the bye. But we have said time and time again, you have opportunities to get out to a big lead in the NFC early. And then you let the NFC maybe catch up a little bit when you have to play Dallas twice and you got to play the Chiefs. And you got to sneak in Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins week 7. But you have an opportunity to really put some distance right now and get ahead playing some of these mediocre teams. And as we keep saying, previous Eagle teams might be 1-1 right now. They might be 0-2 right now. You know, I mean, this game could have gotten out of hand if not for a couple of turnovers and some resilience in the second and third quarter. But they are 2-0. They are undefeated, and they now get to sit back and watch the rest of the NFC battle it out against each other. A couple of good matchups, especially this weekend, with a chance to maybe throw some losses at some undefeated teams, albeit 1-0, and get back to a place where they can really kind of set themselves up to be the number 1 seed. Are there injuries to get healthy? Yes, they got 7+ players out, and we don't know the current status of Jordan Davis. He got injured, went to the tent. It was the leg. Didn't come back in the football game because the game was virtually over by the end of it. You obviously have a bunch of banged up players in the secondary, but you figure full strength, Reed Blankenship, Nakobe Dean being back, obviously James Bradbury. This defense has started to show the little glimpses of what you can expect. We can go through play after play, ripping play designs, ripping Jalen Hurts, getting upset at what the secondary is doing, but at least we've seen glimpses, right? There were moments tonight, especially early on, where we didn't see the 2022 team. We were all wondering, do they
Hmm.
exist, right? Where are they? Where are they? Well, they didn't come play full 4 quarters today. They had some drives, though. And they might have had one complete quarter of the 2022 team in there in the third quarter. But it's in there. And you feel like it can rise to the top eventually, and this team can start playing as good, if not better, than where it was. I think the one question mark that I want to see more of is Jalen Hurts. I want to see him play a little bit better. But overall, 2-0, I think Philadelphia is in a pretty darn good spot right now.
I would agree. Yes, you take it as I mean, the positivity, the walk away with this is, yes, you're 2-0. You know, that's all that matters, is winning in this league. It sometimes is ugly. Now, yes, you need to continue to figure things out. But if you want to say they took a step from week 1 to week 2, they did. They looked better in really all phases, I would say. There were different instances where, again, throughout the course of a game, you're going to see some stuff where it's like, oh my, the Jalen's pick, for example, you're going to see stuff that's like, what in the world? But then you figure some things out. The play calling gets a little bit better. Jalen seems to calm down. He looked a little bit more comfortable in that instance. Now, I will say, and you kind of alluded to as well, you want to see more from him. I think all of us do. The swagger and the flair, I guess you want, whatever you want to call it, that Jalen was playing with, certainly as the season continued to go on last year. We're not seeing that so far. And maybe it's understandable because it's very early on and Jalen's got to get that built up. But there's some part of just being a little uncomfortable. I don't know if it's just a not sure, but there doesn't appear to be as much of that emotion and that swag that he had. So I would like to see it as we continue to go. I think that we will. But, you're sitting here 2-0. You got a chance to get a little healthier, watch some other teams, and I think that you're going to see adjustments as well because you got 10 days to prep for the Bucs.
Let's see if we get any sort of post game audio here. Trying to see who's going to go to the podium right now. It doesn't seem like we're going to get that, but if we do, in the next couple of minutes, we'll throw it up on the screen. I'd love to get maybe a DeAndre Swift at the podium, kind of see who they're going to do. Maybe a Nick Sirianni. I'm sure he will at some point, but it's getting a little late. And so, final thoughts here from everybody down below. How do we feel about our Philadelphia Eagles overall? I think there are still some nerves. I think people are still not convinced. You see it in the comment section, but come on. They put 34 points, 34 points against a team that, was motivated. Not saying the Vikings are a good defense, but they're motivated. They got embarrassed last year in Philadelphia Monday Night Football. This wasn't an embarrassment from a score standpoint because they did put up 28, but the turnovers are something that Kirk Cousins just got to be just beating his head against a wall because he leads the league in touchdown passes with 6, only 1 interception, but his team keeps giving up point after point after point, and they keep fumbling and fumbling and fumbling, and it's got to be a rough night for Viking fans being 0-2, but Philadelphia 2-0, and I think both of us feel pretty good.
Yes. Yep. I think you do. Again, you can always nitpick it to death or say that there's some other areas that you could be better. And I think that the team in general, I think all the players would say, hey, you can always get better. The journey's never over, as Jalen likes to say. And you're continuing to fine tune things, but you come away with the win. The nice part, like we've mentioned several times, is the way the schedule lays out. Is it does give you an opportunity to kind of, in a sense, slowly build your way up and hopefully get in kind of hitting your stride, or finding that moment to where all of a sudden you're playing and clicking on or firing on all cylinders. But you came up 2-0. You got time to get healthy, and we got comments here saying a lot of injuries, man, from Benji. Yeah, the injuries are a concern. We've talked about that in previous instances of, you need the team to be healthy, and that's a given. Every single team, is hoping for that. That's a big part of it. But if they're not healthy, at least you got some decent play from guys that are pressed into action. I mean, Goodrich coming into the game, he's probably not thinking he's going to play a whole lot, but Maddox goes down with the injury. He has to get pressed into that spot, and not an easy cover because he got matched up with Justin Jefferson a few times. Now, he did give up some big plays, but I think that the win you can take away from it, or the positivity, is the fact that you did get a win and that he got some play time and some action out there. Now, whether that means he sticks or if it's just a short term thing, but you're getting some guys some play time. You're building the confidence. And as long as this thing continues, I think we're in a good spot, and you're getting ready for when that gauntlet comes. Cause like we've talked about, you could go in the 6-ish stretch of really tough games, coming off the bye. If you're 2-4 through that stretch, that's a possibility because there's some really good teams back to back. But I think that, again, the best part is you got the win. You looked pretty solid, and you found your RB1. I mean, let's be honest. If there were any questions, I think you answered it. And you do have a running back by committee somewhat. But if me talking here, and I think a lot of us, but hopefully Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, they take a look at this game, and I'm hoping they're going to go, you know what? If Swift is healthy, he's our man. Like, this shouldn't be as much of an RB by committee approach. This should be Swift is our RB1, and Kenny G can rotate in every once in a while. Boston can every once in a while. I hope he's okay. He had the concussion injury, and maybe Rashad Penny. It's kind of interesting that the Eagles staff doesn't really like Rashad as much from what we've seen, because he didn't get a whole lot of carries even in this game. But either way, Swift was on the next level. He's insane.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up right here as we're ending the post-game show. Make sure you guys subscribe to both channels. Plenty more shows happening next couple of days and weeks. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Can't wait for Monday night. We do a lot of shows during the day. If you haven't subbed to our channels yet, we definitely encourage you guys to do it. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. Eagles win. They're 2-0. Signing off. See you guys.